and welcome to POV, your favorite weekly political commentary show. Now, I know you're all waiting on that CHRC interview. Don't worry, it's coming out on Wednesday, because today we need to talk about an issue of national importance. So let's get it. Now, 2 weeks ago, Justice Minister Ziyambi presented to Parliament 3 annual reports by the Auditor General, Mildred Chiri. These reports focused on 3 main areas: government accounts, ministries, departments, and the like, local authorities, and parastatals and state enterprises. Now, each of these reports laid bare the financial, operational, and governance issues plaguing public assets, the majority being payments without corresponding goods and value being received, and of course, misuse of assets and funds, and failure to address past issues of a similar nature highlighted in previous audits. Now, sadly, many of the local authorities and parastatals are behind in their reporting obligations, such that the Auditor General is tasked with reporting on activities from as far back as 2011. Now, why is this of national importance? Well, first, let's understand what the whole report is about. You see, the Office of the Auditor General is tasked with reviewing public financial and operational information of various entities, and in some cases, conduct special investigations where cases of suspected shenanigans are high. Now, the role is extremely important, as the OAG makes sure that the taxes, rates, and levies we pay through our 2% income tax, duties, VAT, airtime tax, and such are used for their intended purposes. Now, when the Minister of Finance announces the national budget, he breaks down how much money is allocated to each ministry and how it should be spent. The OAG then gives you an overview of how that spending has happened and tells us whether your money is being used for what it was supposed to. So at the end of the day, because this is about our money, this is why it's an issue of national importance. Now, if you're wondering, who do you have to hold accountable, or who do you have to look at to see whether the justice is served? Well, our nation has 3 main bodies that are charged with protecting the public from corrupt activities and abuse that has come out in this report. These are the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, or ZAC, the Special Anti-Corruption Unit in the President's Office, or the SACU, and the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission. Now, ZAC is a constitutional body charged with investigating corruption in all its forms. It has up to now been marred with allegations of corruption with itself. Now, a new chairperson, Justice Lois Matanda-Moyo, has recently sworn this year to expect no more illegal things coming out of the commission. And this, we are still yet to see. Now, the SACU is a particularly important one. Why? Because it's a special investigation unit that reports to the president himself and has far-reaching powers to investigate corruption under its power. There have been misgivings over the legality of this unit, as it overlaps the role of the ZAC and the National Prosecuting Authority, the NPA. But they are necessary because the power that they represent is a power that can change things. Now, what about the overseer of our rights? See, the CHRC has the widest powers of all 3 because its duties extend beyond human rights abuses, but actually takes on the role of public protector. Think Thuli Madonsela in South Africa and her work in the Zuma investigation. You see, any and all abuses of power by public officials can be investigated by these guys. And recently, the Commission has reported that it is grossly understaffed and hasn't done enough or has received enough to actually protect the public. Now, over and above these are the MPA and the judiciary, who respectively try and adjudicate the investigated cases to establish innocence or guilt. Brace yourself, guys, because this is where it gets really juicy. Now, let's start with the ministries. Now, in 2018, government exceeded its budget expenditure by $3.2 billion. And this was without approval of Parliament, who are the only body that can say, guys, if you need to spend a little more, do it. And now, of that money, $1.2 billion was used by the Lands and Agricultural Ministry. And the next 6 top overspenders used $1 billion. Now, this excess expenditure was funded by an overdraft from the RBZ and more debts by guess who? You and me. Now, let me tell you why this really needs to grind your gears. Here's a perfect example. Did you know that there is a cash grant given to families that live at the bottom of the poverty table in this country? Well, last year, $9.8 million was made available to the Ministry of Social Welfare under a program whose name is so Zimbabwean, the Harmonized Social Cash Transfer Program. And this money was all sent back to the Treasury. Why? Because the ministry was so out of whack and didn't have its house in order that they simply didn't use it. Imagine how much relief that money could have brought to many families last year. Now, this is a running theme across all the reports. This business of a lack of commitment to address issues identified in past audits and to do right by the people who are paying for these services to be afforded to them. That's you and me. And this goes right across the public sector and just shows just how little these critical reports are actually valued. Now let's talk about our favorite individuals in the world, parastatals and state enterprises. And surprise, surprise, the report says they're a mess. I mean, the report is littered with payments for goods and services that just were never received. This includes a $5 million payment by ZESA to Apito Investments for transformers that has been outstanding since 2010. And what about the GMB paying $1 million for maize that we haven't seen since 2016? And then we wonder why, among other issues, we're stuck hungry and in the dark. See, many public entities are failing to meet their statutory obligations like taxes, medical aid, and social security payments, but are still deducting them from their employees. Let's look at somewhere else. How about aviation, where Air Zimbabwe has been causing the greatest problems? See, the national airline owes the regulator and other service providers so much that they in turn are failing to meet their own financial and operational obligations. See, the Civil Aviation Authority was reported to be running near obsolete radar and flight tracking equipment to the extent that a modern aircraft can enter the country and fly out without actually even being noticed. Now, talk about national security issues. Now, still on Air Zimbabwe, the Daily News misreported that the airline was missing 3 MA-60 planes acquired from China in the early 2000s. The real position is that the planes were physically there, but they were never recorded in the books of Air Zim. Now, that being close to 15 years after the fact, plus major senior staff and board members turnovers, these records would appear to be lost. Now, more on Air Zim on live and other future episodes. Guys, the local authorities are just shocking, to the extent that most of these audits are from 2017 and before. Now, this means that the OAG is reporting on very old issues and hasn't even begun to touch on recent information. Now, by the nature of their audit process, the audit team has to wait until the organization has prepared financial statements for the particular year before they can be audited. Good luck on that. Now, this in turn means that the very undesirable activities that have happened from last year to this day has still not yet been able to be seen by the public. Now, the Auditor General has made this clear that she can only shine a light on what has been going on public bodies, and onus is still upon Parliament through the Public Accounts Committee, the ZAC, SACU, the CHRC, and other such institutions to make sure that these investigations on corruption and other things like embezzlement or the stealing of money, you know how it goes, is actually done. She must be commended for the work she has done to produce all of these resources. We, the public, must make noise about these issues and how the system that we voted for and the representatives that we have in Parliament are not doing what they're supposed to do and are watching as taxpayers' money is willingly squandered. Now, as it stands, our laws are lax in terms of asset seizures and lifestyle audits of people suspected of being beneficiaries of illegal activities. Now, while there are some changes on the horizon, it may take until next year before they can become enforceable reality. Now, this administration has a golden opportunity to regain some lost trust by making sure that the things that have come out in this report are actually enforced and justice is served. A little bit more in my POV. Now, guys, I'm as pumped as this dude about this report. And the reason why is because this is an opportunity from the gods for this administration, for once, to do something that shows that they are willing to be committed to justice. You see, you don't just build confidence and ask for people to do things like austerity for posterity unless you give a little. An opportunity such as this, where you are presented with evidence, facts, figures, names for things that have been done against this country, this is your opportunity to show whose team you're on, whose side you're on, and who you ultimately serve. You see, as it stands, we have an inherent understanding in this country that things that are anti-establishment or anti-Zimbabwe can go without consequence. And it's this kind of understanding that has led to the corruption and the misguidance that is in this report. Let us put a stop to that now. Let us start to introduce this idea that responsibility towards your country should be first and foremost in the way you conduct yourself. So whether you run a business or a parastatal, you need to understand that if you're not doing things that work for this country, then please be careful, because justice will be served. Let's see how this plays out. This is Kuda Mangwe, wishing you a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good night.